Right. This one's coming out late because I want you guys to have had all the time you need to work out how Lando Norris got knocked out in Q1. Spent all your time looking off into the middle distance to see if that flashing light is actually a yellow flag or whatever, because now we can get on to the really important stuff that happened in qualifying. That is Charles Leclerc's qualifying lap. It was insane. And I think possibly the best lap of the season so far. Right. So back in March, I looked at Max Verstappen's lap around Suzuka, and I thought that that lap couldn't be topped. It was just a perfect combination of everything. But I think that as a symbiosis, a coming together of driver, machine, and track, this lap might be up there. Just everything melded into one. Uh, it kind of highlights all of the qualities that Charles has, and the track just allowed him to do it. The car is also starting to allow him to do it as well. So I want to really just focus in on sector one. And I've started by looking at Charles versus Sainz, because both in the same car, weren't massively different in terms of their position, but look at the times. Charles Leclerc finishes a 1:41.365. Sainz finishes a 1:41.805. And I've used the first sector because just like in Suzuka, where I talked about Max Verstappen sort of flowing uphill like a salmon against water through sector one, through the S's, I feel like Sector 1 in Baku, in its own way, is just as iconic and just as distinctive as that lap. It just needs to be driven in a different way. And you'll see that hopefully in what Charles is doing. So let's just have a look at the traces again, just to familiarize ourselves. So in red, we have Charles' lap, and in white, we have Carlos's lap. On the top, the first trace that you can see is the speed trace. So the x-axis, or the horizontal line, is the distance along the track, and the y-axis, the axis going vertically with the numbers on it, that's the speed in kilometers per hour. And whenever the red line is higher up or further along than the white line, it shows that Charles is going a bit quicker. We'll look at that in a second. Second is the delta. That is my favorite trace. It's the one that makes things the most easy to interpret. Because Charles was the fastest across the entire lap, his line is the horizontal red line. It is unmoving, unchanging. Carlos is always represented as either above or below that, depending on whether he was faster or slower. If he's above the red line, he is slower than Charles. If he's below the red line, he is faster than Charles. We've then got the throttle and brake traces, and the throttle and brake traces are what I really want to look at here. So through sector one, it's a series of 90-degree corners. Now, if we zoom in on what Carlos was doing, Carlos comes off the throttle. He actually hits the brake slightly earlier than Charles, but he's completely off the throttle. He has nothing on in each of the first four corners, nothing. Whereas you can see, Charles brakes a bit later, takes a bit more time to come off the throttle. It's a little bit more delicate with it, but he maintains a bit of throttle right the way through the corner. That's him, I think, balancing the car through the corner, just using a little bit more gas just to get the rear end rotated round and give him a bit more drive coming off the corner. You can see on the speed trace that Charles, along all of those straights following those corners, has the higher end of straight speed on the following straight. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to see this, where Carlos is completely binary. He's either on or off. Charles is delicately feathering the throttle, metering out how much he needs in the middle of the corner to make sure that he has the car balanced just so he can get the perfect amount of speed out of it. It's absolutely beautiful to see. This is the final corner. And I've just highlighted this just to, again, show you exactly what he's doing. Now, the delta at this point is so miles apart that you can't even see Charles' red line on the delta trace. But again, look at his throttle. Look how much more throttle he's applying through the middle of that corner. Look how much later he is braking. And then if you look at their respective gear traces, Charles in fourth, whereas Carlos has had to slow down a bit more just to keep his engine revs up because he's come off the throttle. He's in third. That's how much faster Charles is going. And if you thought this was just because I'm comparing two Ferraris, look, this is sector one as seen by Oscar Piastri. And again, Oscar's really binary, comes off the throttle completely in the first three corners. And even then, Charles got a little bit of throttle on him. He's balancing that car. He's making it sing, dance through those corners. And that is what this track needs. That's what this sector needs. It needs you to treat the car not like a 1000 brake horsepower monster. No, it has to be treated like a go-kart. That's what Charles is doing. So I've got a couple of little pictures just to show you what I think he's doing. This is into turn three. I'm going to go back to the telemetry in a second just to show you what he's doing here. This is on corner entry. Subtle, but watch this. Turns in the steering wheel a little bit. Winds off the lock a little bit because I think he's just done his initial move. He's done one little move and then he really punts the car in. Look at that steering angle at this point. Yes, it's later in the corner, but he's come from having edged in a little bit, taken a bit off, and then steered into the corner again. I want you to look one last time at turn three on the telemetry. Now look at the throttle and brake traces. And when I said that Carlos was being binary, this is where it shows the most. Carlos just comes straight off the throttle, whereas Charles is blending off the throttle into turn three. And where Carlos applies the brakes hard, Charles, in a car that requires immense brake pressure to be able to get the car slowed down, look what he is doing. He's gradually easing the brake in. When I say that Charles reminds me of Gilles Villeneuve, this is what I'm talking about. The late, great Gilles Villeneuve once said that in order to drive around a corner, all I need are three pedals, a gear lever, and a steering wheel. What more tools do you need? And in an era where we're looking at drivers with steering wheels festooned with buttons, a screen that tells them what to do, a radio that's blurting in their ears, telling them how to take each corner, it's really, really refreshing to see that a driver still drives by the seat of his pants, feeling what the car is doing underneath him, knowing what he needs to do to control that car to get it absolutely dancing through that corner and out the other side. This, for me, is an unbelievable lap. It may have come at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, an ignominious track, one that we don't really talk about. But just like Max and Suzuka, the setting is just the canvas for an artist to paint his masterpiece. I'll see you guys in the next one.